Hong Kong is relaxing its COVID-19 rules from today as it looks to get its economy back on track following its fifth and worst wave of the pandemic. And to prepare for reopening, places like massage parlours were being disinfected yesterday. Now, under the loosened restrictions, dine-in services at restaurants will be extended to 10 p.m. from 6 p.m. currently, and there can be up to 4 diners at a table from 2. The number of people that can gather publicly is also raised from 2 to 4, and there's no longer a ban on private gatherings involving more than 2 households. Premises including gyms, massage parlours, museums, cinemas, religious places, playgrounds and sports venues can reopen but must run at only half their capacity. But bars will remain closed, as will public beaches, pools and barbecue sites. With more is Assistant Foreign Editor Magdalene Fung, who is connecting from Hong Kong. Magdalene, what's the mood like today when the rules are finally being eased?
The streets are definitely, they seem a little more crowded today compared with the previous days when the groups of 2 restrictions were still in effect. There's a palpable sense of excitement among some locals. For example, restaurants are a little more crowded in some places, though not necessarily filled to the brim, because today is a weekday and most people have to work after all. So we may start seeing bigger crowds only later this evening when the 6 p.m. dine-in ban is lifted, or over the weekend. Staff at shops earlier today, they say business is noticeably busier today. Of course, they are happier about it, even if slightly overworked. I'm told that many restaurants, both high-end and middle of the range, are already fully booked for dinner and over the weekend. How was it like before these rules were lifted today? To be honest, many people have not been keeping strictly to these restrictions all the time, especially over the Easter 4 days long holidays this past weekend, after the easing was already announced but had not yet taken effect. So over this past weekend, the crowds were already out in full force. No social distancing observed as the crowds, they squeezed into very crowded ferries at the piers to visit the outlying islands. Personally, I was at Lama and Chong Chau Islands over the weekend, and as a law-abiding Singaporean who has only just arrived in Hong Kong 2 weeks ago, it was a bit of a culture shock for me.
Health authorities haven't ruled out the plan to test Hong Kong's entire population. Is there a timeline on when that is starting? And if positive cases are detected, is it likely that the city would go back into lockdown?
Hong Kong authorities have not ruled out their plan to test the whole population, but so far they have not given any fixed timeline for going about it or how they will do it. Is it to make everyone go and queue up to take PCR tests at mobile or community testing centres? Or will it be to force everyone to do self-administered RAT testing at home and then report it online? That we don't know yet. What we do know, however, is that an editorial published in China's official People's Daily today has commented that in order to reopen borders between Hong Kong and mainland China, that's something that the Hong Kong government has said is topmost on its priority list. So reopening with the mainland China. So People's Daily today commented that in order to do so, keeping closely to China's dynamic zero COVID-19 policy is imperative. It's a necessary condition to reopening. The editorial said that Hong Kong's COVID situation is an integral part of how China as a whole is dealing with a pandemic. And so I doubt there will be very much more loosening or reopening of the borders until Hong Kong can be seen to have its COVID situation very tightly under control. Meanwhile, having observed the lack of social distancing over this holiday weekend, I have a suspicion that there may soon be a rebound of cases, maybe not necessarily reflected in the official numbers because that's also dependent on whether people are willing to report their infections. And of course, so far, the people that I've spoken to are not keen to do that. And people do fear and are quite wary of having a sixth wave come upon them very quickly. And well, for the sake of the Hong Kong economy and the sanity of its locals here, I do hope that will not be the case.